right now on the campus, sort of in the middle of all this construction, we're serving 16 families who are going to be our first set of clients and residents that will move into the shelter. And I'm inspired. I've gotten to know these families, seeing all these little ones running around and talking to their moms and dads. So I have to say it's shifting a little bit, probably just from the sense of it being so close that Unity House is already stealing my heart in terms of doing this work.
Welcome to today's podcast episode. We're so excited to be joined by Matt Reed, Director of Louisville's Community Care Campus of the Volunteers of America Midstate. Matt, great to have you on the podcast today. Really appreciate that. Looking so forward to learning more about the Community Cares Campus and kind of your journey as well. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Dave. Thank you so much for inviting me and Tony as well. I appreciate the chance to be here and share a little bit about myself and the campus. So very excited.
Why don't we do this? You had spent a long time at YMCA Safe Place Services, I think nearly three decades. I'd really be interested, before we jump into the Community Cares Campus, to understand a little bit about your journey and how you got started with YMCA Safe Place. And
sure.
And you're still in the game, man. You're still doing it.
Yeah, it is quite a journey. I'm first of all, I'm born and raised here in Louisville. I grew up and certainly had some challenges in my childhood and teenage years. But really what was sort of transformative in my, what sort of led me to do this work, I was in college and it was my junior year, and actually really starting back in my freshman year. But my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma, and we were very close, growing up and through high school. So that was my freshman year in college when he got the diagnosis. So I was, first started off as a business major and thought I was going to do something in that arena. But as I sort of, supported my dad and saw how difficult things got over those 2.5 years in college, after he passed in my junior year, really just had one of those really life kind of changing moments in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. My dad had taught me a lot about compassion and supporting others and those in need. And so I scurried around and changed my major really quickly and got a psychology major completed. And then I went to work for Brookline Youth Services. And that's where it really just, I kind of got hooked into the work, supporting a lot of those young people at Brookline for about 1.5 years, just in a very direct care role, just to really kind of see if this is something I wanted to do. And I would say maybe just like a month into that work, I was very, very inspired and figured that I had really landed in the right spot. So went back and got my master's degree at UK. And then I landed at Safe Place. I was the first job after getting my master's degree. I started as a primary counselor back in 1999, and sort of history, from there. I was a counselor for a few years. Directed the shelter house program for about 7 years, and then for 17 years now, previous to this position, I was the executive director, and really just was a calling. Really felt like it was more than a job, and so I, it just each year went by, and it just, I couldn't see myself doing anything different. And I know we're going to talk about the partnerships in C3 here in a minute, but yeah, it's been quite a journey. Love Louisville and love the opportunity to see what I can do to make a difference in young people's lives and families and folks who are struggling. So always inspired to wakes me up. Wake up every morning. I think about that. I oftentimes think about my dad and sort of what landed me in this role. So that's a little bit about myself, Dave.
The spirit lives on, certainly, and there's a reason for things, and you're at the right place at the right time. And I, and let's pivot to talking about the Community Cares Campus. And thank you for your service here locally.
Thanks. Sure.
And obviously, thank you for what you're going to be doing in advance of actually doing it, because it's so important. And for a number of years, folks have seen in the news about the Community Cares Campus, and now it's really a reality, and we're moving forward. And let's not presume that folks know everything about it. Let's presume that they don't, and let's talk a little bit about what the campus is going to be. I mean, clearly it's more full service emergency shelter, 29 units, families. There's so much need for families in the community. I think this is intended to serve that purpose, but I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell us a little bit about the Community Cares Campus and what it's going to be and
Sure.
what it is.
Very excited to talk about it. Just to kind of trace back a little bit, back in January 2023 is when the campus really kind of began from its very infancy. Louisville Metro purchased that property. And so for folks to understand, it's the property that's right across from Male High School. So it's bordered by Floyd Street, Brook Street, and Breckenridge, as well as the alleyway that connects the three streets. Pretty large campus, number of buildings there, and they were run down. And Louisville Metro decided that this was a great opportunity to create partnerships and a real call to action to see what the campus could become in terms of addressing homelessness. So,
So it's west. It's west of Preston, right? It's on the west side.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
right. Yeah. So it's technically it's Smoketown neighborhood.
That's correct. Yes,
Okay.
right there in Smoketown. And so just what it's going to become is very exciting. I think a number of services that are critically and our community critically needs will be coming to life here very soon. So once complete, we will have a 29 unit family shelter that will serve all families. I think in the neighborhood of potentially 100 folks, when you think about the kids that will be there, and parents and caregivers will be able to be served in this new shelter, and that's going to be called Unity House 2. So really excited that, and that's phase one, and so it is kind of a phased in project. Next up from there will be what we're referring to as called our partner space. So we'll have some administrative offices for Volunteers of America staff, but it will also have a number of offices and community spaces for community partners to take up some housing, to sort of house their services there, opportunities to lease and create some, a number of different services will be a part of that partner space, from mental health services, behavioral health, looking at some partnerships with our local food service providers, as well as a number of folks that are part of the mayor's Home for Good program. So really excited about this partner space. Relatively close to the same time that partner space will open, we will also open a transitional housing program for young adults who are 18 to 24. And when I say we, I mean the partnership. That actually will be a partnership with the YMCA, and that's kind of how I kind of got into the conversation of becoming the director. YMCA Safe Place Services will operate that young adult service, transitional housing for young adults. So that's what we're kind of considering phase two. Phase three will bring about, I think, a critical set of services for our community called medical respite. This is going to be a 30-bed facility operated by Family Health Centers, and they will be providing a lot of health services for folks who may be in the emergency room, may need some critical care, but as many of us who've ever had been in a car accident and you need some rehabilitative services following that accident, or just whatever might be that has caused you to initiate with the emergency rooms, Family Health Center is going to offer 1, 2, maybe even 3 weeks of rehabilitative services for folks. So that's really going to target that revolving door that we're all accustomed to learning about when it comes to emergency room visits. So very excited about phase 3 and the medical respite building. And then down the road, there is going to be an opportunity to build a 40-unit affordable housing complex, as well as some additional permanent supported housing or transitional housing on the campus. That one's a little bit down the road, but yeah, all in all, it's going to be it's a very big project, and we are on the cusp of opening phase 1. We're excited that
Awesome.
Community House 2 shelter is scheduled to open in a few weeks, and so I've joined the team at the right time. While I'm excited to direct the campus, I am channeling, talking about my dad. My dad was in construction. He was a construction manager. So I'm kind of thrown into some of the construction, making some decisions. And it's been exciting to come on board in the last few weeks. As I said, we're getting ready to open up phase 1.
Well, I love hearing about the holistic approach that the community care campus has. I know you mentioned phase 1 will open, sounds like sometime in mid to late July. What's kind of the rest of the timeline look for those phase 2, 3, and then I know 4 is further down the road, but
Sure.
for the phase 2, phase 3?
So we're on track for the partner space building that will include the community partnership opportunities, as well as transitional housing to open at the end of the year. So December, January, we're on track for phase 2 to open then. And then medical respite, roughly probably a year from now, probably, summer of 2027 is when the medical respite building will open up. And then phase 4 will follow from there, probably honestly, sometime 2028 is when the phase 4 will open. So everything's sort of kind of lining up to really come on board between next few weeks all the way through 2028.
Well, huge undertaking. I'm just curious what excites you most about it.
That's a great question, Tony. I have to say, initially, I would clearly the transitional housing opportunity for young adults, but that's really just my background, having been at Safe Place for almost 3 decades. That was certainly where my heart was when I first started just a couple of months ago. But I have to say, when I came on board, I said I want to be on this campus from the beginning, even though it's really a construction site more than anything right now. It was a couple of months ago. So I was landed in a little almost utility closet in what's called the temp shelter. So right now on the campus, or in the middle of all this construction, we're serving 16 families who are going to be our first set of clients and residents that will move into the shelter. And I'm inspired. I have gotten to know these families, seeing all these little ones running around and talking to their moms and dads. So I have to say it's shifting a little bit, probably just from the sense of it being so close that Unity House is already stealing my heart in terms of doing this work. So it's a really hard question to answer, but I wanted to make that point because I think a lot of these folks are in some very tough situations, but I've also seen them. They're also very motivated to get out of this situation. At least the folks we have running around there. So they're excited, and certainly my energy is following their excitement as well.
Hey Tony, let's talk about that. The excited. You mentioned the folks that you're working with right now, and and certainly homelessness being a temporary thing, and moving folks from that crisis situation or traumatic situation into stability is ultimately the goal. Clearly, trying to create a system in which folks aren't homeless in the first place is the best. And St. Vincent de Paul does do that with its various conferences across the region in terms of just providing help on rent and utilities and cars breakdown and all those things that can ultimately lead to somebody finding themselves in a crisis situation. But talk to us a little bit about this campus, because again, you know that I'd spent about 3 years at St. Vincent de Paul, and for me, what struck me with the success that we have is that notion of wrapping around a lot of different things, right? You know, at St. Vincent de Paul's campus, there's the emergency shelter, there's transitional shelter, there's permanent supportive housing, there's a pantry, there's a kitchen that serves 11,000 meals a month. I'm really interested because in the campus that you're going to be running, because not only do you have those things, but you have healthcare as well, which is really critical for folks. Talk to us about why this campus is going to be such an effective tool to help folks get from that crisis mode to stability.
Sure. You, you kind of were already kind of led into what I think is the most critical piece to this opportunity, and that is, first, I think we're filling a void, some critical needs: the shelter, medical respite, transitional housing, low income affordable housing. So we're not duplicating. So, oh, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Now, let me interrupt you there too.
Yeah.
In addition to that, this whole notion of families don't have to be split up. There's
That's right.
a place for families, which is really needed. So go ahead. I just wanted to add that in there.
Absolutely. I think that you have to think of families as units, and you've got to be able to keep them together. But also, I think the logistics support the idea that there are a number of other services on the campus that can support, let's say, the families that are in the shelter, whether it's, as I mentioned, the partner space opportunities, if there's a medical respite healthcare need. I mean, that's just a walk out the door and down the walkway to the medical respite area. Certainly the idea of being able to transition from shelter into whether it's transitional housing for families or into low income or affordable housing on the other side of the campus. But the other thing I think is critical is that we I think have selected a set of services that aren't quite fully represented in the Smoketown area, and recognize the value of partnerships beyond the campus. So I have to give Jennifer Clark a big plug. She was one of the first phone calls that I made when I assumed the role, and Jennifer and I have already pulled together. We had a neighborhood partner meeting a couple of weeks ago of the service providers in the Smoketown area, and I think that so. It's amazing what's going to be on the campus. We're going to have a wonderful set of services, but I think one of your questions was what's success going to look like. It's also going to be about how do we leverage opportunities we have with the partners in the Smoketown area to provide an even greater continuum of services. So one of the first things I did when I talked with Jennifer was we got to at least get folks in the same room. Let's talk about what challenges we have. Let's talk about what our security needs are, and more importantly, what are services that we're offering and we maybe aren't as aware as we should be of what's being offered by some of the other providers. So that's still in its infancy. We've got a second meeting scheduled in July, and we're going to keep that going because I think, as I said, what happens on the community care campus is vital, is going to help fill a critical void, but will only be made better by folks like Jennifer and St. Vincent de Paul and Recenter and Vocal, a number of New Directions, Blueprint 502, just to name a few, Salvation Army. So we have had a number of partners at that table, and I think everybody's got energy and everybody's got some excitement to see how we can all bring it together.
It's interesting. I was just on a habitat build last week in the Smoketown area there, where they're beginning to also create not just one-off kind of projects, but little neighborhoods as well. And I think, those permanent solutions ultimately, what I'm saying is I love hearing what you're saying about the collaboration.
Yeah.
It takes that kind of collaboration. And I think the community likes to see that as well. And it's not always easy to collaborate. It's not always easy because it always doesn't mesh kind of together. But the fact that you're working hard on that, I think is also part of the solution to being really effective in this, in what we're trying to do in our community.
No doubt about it. It sort of by design, in some ways, it's just the way it is. Partners oftentimes can find yourself in a silo, and sometimes that's because we're all chasing funding. But if I think a good leader and a good set of folks who work in these in the partnerships recognize you got to get above that. If you really are in it to create change and create opportunities for folks, that you have to get out of those silos and begin to realize that it takes a village, and we don't all have to be experts at everything, and recognize that there's expertise and support out there that can be way more effective than trying to duplicate a set of services that may already exist. So it is a lot of hard work. It certainly is. But I think it's one of the lessons I learned at the Y. The Y does a lot. There's all kinds of different services and that are offered by the Y. But Safe Place was very unique set of services. So as I sort of, over the years being the executive director, realized that, hey, real change and real opportunity is only going to be as good as we can connect to partners outside of the Y. So I think bringing that energy and that mindset to this new opportunity, hopefully will serve us all well.
Hey, Tony, I know you probably got a question, but let me follow up.
You're good.
With one more thing on the healthcare, Matt. Are there beds? I mean, is it like it could be inpatient for a short period of time, and also, is there a pharmacy attached to it? And I mean, what?
Yes, David. Actually, yes. So very similar to what an experience that if you ever been to a rehabilitation center, yes, there will be medical beds, doctors and nurses and care provided there on site, as well as a pharmacy, so folks can get their prescriptions filled there. So that is super unique. I think that to have a level of healthcare on a campus, I think is sort of unprecedented. So it's not just a clinic. It is full on rehabilitative respite care services. So right now, Hotel Louisville has some beds that Family Health Centers operates. I think this will, but there's also a lot of things that go on at Hotel Louisville. So this is going to allow, central focus on the need that a lot of these folks have. And there are just a number of occasions where folks, and rightfully so, they leave the ER and they need they really need 3 or 4 more days of recovery. And if you're living on the street or you're navigating from a shelter to another shelter or a day shelter, that's super difficult if you need that type of care. So I think there's a number of ways I think we're going to create impact, but just the pure savings and that it's the right thing to do to provide a comprehensive medical care for someone who's had an injury or who has even a long-term ailment they're struggling with. That's going to be huge for a community.
Well, I think again, it's you talk about savings, and that kind of piques my interest as well, because regardless of why folks want to reduce homelessness, the fact that we can agree that a healthy community has less homeless families and individuals on the street, right? And when I say health of the community, not just health in terms of physical bodily health, but just the health of the community overall. And so I think it shouldn't be lost on folks to understand how unique this is, because the less time that the emergency room needs to be used, and the more that you can have solutions like this, that reduces, and again, I'm not trying to be crass here in terms of our conversation, but it reduces the cost to the community as well, and the cost to the hospitals. So you're doing something that's very unique and also has an impact economically on our community and the health of the community, let alone the health of the individuals, which is paramount and most important.
No doubt about it. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think that the impact it just touches a number of things that will have collective impact. And as we all just said, and you said it very well, David, that most importantly, the impact that we'll have on individuals with that medical respite care.
I appreciate your heart for this work. It definitely comes across in this conversation, and just like you said, the collective buzz that is happening around solving homelessness is really apparent here in Louisville. It can feel like a drop in the bucket sometimes, right? Where it's such a massive problem and there's so many opinions about this and it's so complex. That it can be challenging, right? I think food insecurity, it's a little easier, right? When you need an ask for more food and kind donations like that, if you have a food pantry or a community kitchen like we do. But homelessness, again, there's so many various options and ideas. For you guys, what do you feel like in terms of addressing this issue is most important to just the long-term investment of the community and serving those in need? Because, like you said, you've already spoken with some of these families, the 14 or 16 families that you mentioned. So there's such obviously a long-term difference. What do you feel like is the most important part?
I think the comprehensive approach, and I'm a believer, a firm believer in housing first, but I also know that you have to have a number of other things and services that are very quickly associated with that housing first approach. So I think the ability to bring, mental health services, job readiness, workforce development opportunities together while you are gaining the housing that everyone deserves is critical. And also, I think this kind of speaks again, I think, to the overall opportunities within Smoketown as well as the campus. Um, Bringing those services onto a campus and into a community that has a number of other services just creates a lot of opportunity for folks to not have to travel throughout the city to get services over here, over there. So I think that there's an efficiency that comes with those services and that the way of that approach that will benefit our community. And then one of the things I've been most impressed about over the last couple of months as I've been at VOA is just watching some of the case managers in the temporary shelter doing some great work, making sure basic needs are met, but also being very firm and really going through case plans and really talking about employment and talking about education opportunities or what a client needs in terms of behavioral health or mental health services. It's inspiring to see that work going on because hey, at the end of the day, it's a shelter, and I'm already sensing that at least the direct care folks and program manager I've been working with there, they see it as much bigger than that. That you've got to have those conversations and make those connections from the very beginning when you sit down with a family. So, it's very complex. There are a lot of challenges, but I also believe in our community. I believe that we have some amazing folks here, especially a lot of frontline direct care folks that want to help, and hopefully they are doing that in a comprehensive way. And so far, I've seen some great stuff as I've been on the campus.
Well, I mean, Dave, you go. I mean, it's just apparent that I believe you and your team are ready for this role. I'm curious, nearly 3 decades at the Y, how did that kind of shape you and your understanding, for this moment?
Ooh, that's a good question. One of the things that I really tried to work in as the executive director at the Y was that I was a boots on the ground type of person. I certainly had a big role in leading our board and doing fundraising development, a lot of grant writing, a lot of reporting, and a lot of opportunities to extend leadership within the YMCA. But on a daily basis, I spent time on the floor of the shelter, or in our drop-in center, or volunteering as a mentor in the Wine Out program. I think that I'm leaning on those interactions and that experience, honestly, more than I am some of the leadership opportunities I have, because I believe that everybody has their own solutions. They really do. And it's really a matter of getting the right people who who are supportive and caring, but also able to help folks be accountable and support them when they thinking about addiction. Supporting folks through those times maybe they have fallen off the wagon. You've got to be a catch at every point that a person's going through. So I think that really the direct care, and again, even though I was in an executive role, the day-to-day interactions I had with our staff and our clients has probably prepared me more than anything for this next venture with VOA.
The beauty, and I just want to just broach one topic quickly here, because I know we need to wrap up. It's and I think folks know this, but this is a public-private effort. So government, the Mayor Greenberg has been very passionate about the Community Cares Campus and has been very supportive. But also, in addition to that, Volunteers of America has stepped up. I think Jennifer Hancock is certainly, not afraid to step up and do really hard things. And I'm so glad that you're on that team now and are going to be leading that forward and being on the ground, being there to see it happen through the various phases. I mean, I hope it has puppies and is able to be, replicated in different parts of our community. But talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Public, private, the importance of that to get things done. And again, the community, us as private individuals and residents of this community have skin in the game as well, in terms of whether we've donated or time donated or money donated. And maybe you can finish a little bit, Matt, with how can people get involved?
Sure.
But talk a little bit about that public-private partnership, and then let us know, let the folks that are listening know how they can get involved and help you.
Sure. It's essential. I think a public-private partnership to address such a complex issue is essential. And credit to Mayor Greenberg for not only envisioning this campus becoming what it is planned to be, but also launching the Home for Good program, which is a comprehensive set of services that community-wide will provide the support that our folks need. VOA just being a part of that effort. So I think from day one, Mayor Greenberg recognized and realized that this was such a critical issue. I've known Jennifer a long time, and I've had great admiration for her ability to get things done. And I think bringing Mayor Greenberg together with Jennifer on this partnership really launched things in such a strong and passionate way that that's really what has led us to today. But I think part of a public-private partnership recognizes that as times change and certain challenges, whether it be inflation or cost of living, that the government has to respond to that. They have to help sort of level set our community in a way that housing can be affordable for folks, and that doesn't just happen at the government level. It requires the private sector and the nonprofit sector to come together and in support of that effort. And I think this campus is one example of that, of several that are going on. The other thing I want to give VOA and the city a lot of credit for, their ability to leverage the need and the opportunity for this campus at the state level a number of significant investment has been made by the Kentucky General Assembly to see this project come to fruition. And then lastly, this is while a lot of this was developed through the wisdom and expertise of folks in our community, Jennifer and her team went and studied other communities. A lot of what the community care campus will offer is based on a model that San Antonio has developed, and so recognizing that a lot of times you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you do your diligence and you go out and find solutions that are in the other communities and figure out a way to replicate them in your own community. That is better for all of us, and that was another big piece to this campus. And first, so how the community get involved. First of all, we'd just love to see you. We'd love for you to come visit the campus. As I said, right now it looks like a big old construction site, but we do have a grand opening set for July 30th at 11 a.m. Okay. It's a ribbon cutting, and we'd love to have folks come join us for that ribbon cutting. There are opportunities to both volunteer as well as donate to VOA and the community care campus. But what I would really say to that question, Dave, is if find your own passion. Figure out whether it's VOA or St. Vincent de Paul or another nonprofit. I think when folks volunteer, there's obviously a quick return on investment for the person volunteering, but it does make a huge impact. And so I think organizations are, if I had a bunch of organizational leaders here in the nonprofit sector, they would agree that, most of their organizations move their strategic plans forward, move their mission forward on the backs of their staff, but also on the backs of volunteers. Yep. So if it's, so come see us, reach out to myself or others at VOA, but also I would say, find that organization that really lights a fire and get involved. We can read a lot on social media, and I always appreciate the folks who will chime in and say, this is the time for you to get off the screen and go jump in. And so there are a number of organizations that would welcome folks to get involved.
Matt, will you all have a separate website, or will you be a part of the VOA website?
Well, great question, Dave. I'm gonna play the I'm kind of new card on this one. I think we are gonna just be a part of the VOA website, and it will probably look a little different considering it is this big partnership. But I'll get back to you on that so I can drive folks there. Right now I know there's a landing page on the VOA website that has some information, and I believe that it now has some information about the grand opening ribbon cutting. So I will keep you all in the loop as that progresses. If there's a different landing page and so forth. But yeah, you can go on and find information about community care as well as my contact information, and I'm happy to talk with anybody who wants to get involved.
Sounds great.
Yeah, we'll make sure to include that in the show notes when you update this. And so, again, Matt, thank you so much for your time. We are excited for you and for the VOA, Louisville Metro Government, and all that went into this project. And you're here, you're nearing the finish line, at least for phase one. So, again, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the time. And I got the chance to review some of the other podcasts. You all are doing great work, so keep it up, and I'm happy to come back anytime. Thank you all.